the reality is, it's those special moments we have with the people that we care about the most, being adored by the people that we adore, not just by fans that we've never met. It's so damn tempting. It's so alluring. Someone can have an extraordinary vision, but also big vision requires big responsibility.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am here with Garrett Gunderson, who is a New York Times best-selling author. And he is here. He's a comedian. Hopefully, he'll probably make fun of me right now for making a mistake on his intro, but I'm super excited to chat with him. I ran into Garrett at a SAS Academy event that Dan Martell ran down in Austin, Texas a few months ago, and he gave an unbelievable keynote that I was like, I want to talk to this guy more. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on, Garrett.
Thanks for having me. That was fun to do SAS Academy, and that keynote's a little different than most keynotes, right?
Oh, totally. I wanted to start with your, my impression when you came out was, it was like, okay, this is a script. It's like a performance or a play. And then I just got sucked in, and you obviously have put in a ton of time. Like Dan Martell is completely opposite, right? He just comes on and just goes off whatever he wants to talk about. But you had a mission of what you're trying to get across in that. I don't even know how long it was. It felt like it was 10 minutes. But that was, I mean,
I'll take that as a compliment. It was just over an hour, so that's great. That's the goal, is to make it just feel like,
yeah, it just, and there's humor and everything. So yeah, tell me, how did you settle on that? Because I don't think that's a common, or I don't know, your approach is very unique.
Look, I spoke at MIT years ago for this thing called Gathering of the Titans, and I'm on the bus to go to Gathering of the Titans, and it's with other speakers, and this guy sitting next to me, his name is Bo Eason. And I'm like, what are you speaking on? He goes, I'm doing a one-man show. And in my head, I was like, what the hell is that? Like, I didn't understand. But then when he performed, I was like, wow, like it just blew everyone away. And so I had him come to one of my events, and, didn't think a whole lot more about it until one night I had this dream. And when I'm in the dream, there's a tall, like, person, almost looked like it could have been me, I guess. It was all dressed in black, performing with lights to the side, so it felt a little Broadway-esque. And then all of a sudden I was the person on stage, and then all of a sudden I was the person in the crowd. I woke up, I'm like, I'm going to do a one-man show. That's how I'm going to teach people about money in a totally different way. And so I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to do a one-man show. She's like, what's that? And I told her, she's like, cool, that sounds great. So I got a director, called Bo, his director became my acting coach. His movement guy became my movement guy, got a screenwriter, just started.
Say movement guy?
Yeah, like there's a guy, Jean-Louis, he wrote Back to the Body. It's a great book, and he works with a lot of people in Hollywood on, like, he worked with Austin Butler in the movie Elvis. So like how you move on stage and how you let your hands tell a story, and how you are selective about your movement so that it's more received by the crowd.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So yeah, like, just put together the team, man, and then went to work on it. I put more time into that than all my other speeches combined, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's something that I love to do. And I've added a new dimension since you've seen me, where it's now musically scored. So there's a musical score that goes with it. So imagine like those moments.
Through the whole time?
I mean, there's times where the music score isn't happening, just like you'd have in a movie, where there's just, the words are enough, but there's other times where there's just a little subtle score. There's other times where there's a little.
Yeah, just to add the emotion that's what music does in movies. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
I hadn't really seen that with the keynote, and I thought that would be a really cool thing to add to a keynote.
How often are you doing these keynotes?
I want to do them twice a month. I'm not, but I want to do twice a month. I'm just barely launching my website that allows people to book this and understand it exists. I mean, I'm friends with Dan. That's how he knew, and was like, yeah, we need to have you at SAS. And I'd spoken at SAS Academy, during COVID on the virtual side, and I'd spoken at Boardroom, their inner circle group. So he already knew, and I speak as Empire Builder. So he kind of knows me as a speaker. I've also spoken at other places just because they knew me as a speaker before. And then I tell them about this, but it hasn't really, this is pretty new at putting it out there and being on stages with it. Probably only 10 times.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm interested about is the comedy journey. So you have, if you want to give like bullet points, you're an entrepreneur, you're now author, speaker, but comedy is something that you've been passionate about, I assume, for a long time. But when was that like an inkling of like, oh, I should do this? And when did you actually first do a stand-up?
Well, I knew I loved comedy when I was 5, just because my family on both sides, my dad's side, my mom's side, they were just, my uncles are hilarious. My aunts have huge laughs. Like, we always have these family parties. And I started telling jokes when I went to college, like to my family. I mean, it might have been high school. these are inappropriate jokes that like every time either side of the family get around, everybody gather around and I tell the jokes and be the same jokes half the time and they're just laughing. And so I really had this like passion for it, but I didn't really for sure decide I was going to do it until I went to Mastermind Talks as a speaker. If you're familiar with Mastermind Talks and Jason Guynard, it's a really great event. I went as a speaker. He had me on as a speaker, and I attended the event the whole time. And he just had people write like themselves a letter about something that they really want to do but haven't done. And so I wrote, I do stand-up comedy. That was probably 2014, and then I did my first open mic in 2017 August, and it went really well. And these comedians were like, "Dude, you should open for us." So I just started opening for them, and then when they filmed their special in 2019, I opened, and there was a Hollywood agent there that said, "Dude, nobody's done this in finance." See, at that point, it was just a hobby. Like I knew it would make me a better speaker. I was having a lot of fun doing it. But then all of a sudden it was like, do I want to do this? I took a few months to decide. And then I was like, yeah. And so April 15th of 2021, I filmed a comedy special called The American Ream using, a bunch of money pieces in it. It'll be coming out this year on the streaming services, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I have always loved comedy, and I went to this camp. It was a leadership camp in the summer, and they had a talent show every year, and I was scared out of my mind, but I loved comedy, and I had little jokes I had written down, but I'd never done it before, and so I did it at this high school leadership camp, which is like the most welcoming environment that you could possibly do something that you're scared to do, because like everybody's like an all-star and everyone's giving you a standing ovation. But it was in front of 300 kids, and it was like awesome. And then 2 other times in high school at little open mic nights, I did little jokes. And then for some reason I haven't, I am, anytime I talk publicly, I remember when I was in high school, and this is what I want to ask, if you have any other comedians that you've looked up to. I remember hearing a story that Chris Farley because he passed away, but got nervous before every single skit all through his entire career. And so part of his strategy was just doing something ridiculous right at the beginning, usually with like tripping or stumbling or whatever, to get everybody laughing. And that would make him like calm his nerves because everyone would be laughing. And I also heard Seinfeld, why I can't think of his first name? Jerry Seinfeld said that when you are as a comedian and you make a room laugh, you have power over that room, like just power framing. And if there's someone in the room that is like a heckler that's like messing with you or says something, like if a comedian is not skilled, that heckler could take power away from the comedian and it can get really awkward. But when you get everybody in the room to laugh at that heckler, now you maintain power. Does that make sense? Or have you had any experiences of that, or of either of those two things?
The first time I was ever heckled was I was roasting Dan Martell, and someone in the crowd said something, and I didn't hear what they said, but I could tell like the nature of it was heckling. And I immediately turned to them and I said, and he looked and he's like eating and there's hands all over his, food all over his hands. And I just go, "Oh, let me guess, you're single? Here by yourself, are you?" And like, I just like went in and they're like, "He's going through a divorce." I'm like, "Well, let me tell you whose fault this divorce is." Like, I just went like after it. And then people are like, "Oh," but when I was in Vegas early on, before I was like, would consider myself a comedian, I was just had a buddy there that was doing a comedy set. And he's like, "Dude, I can get you on." So I went on, and there was 3 really drunk girls in the crowd, and I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't like mess with them. I didn't say anything, and it made the rest of the rhythm of that little 4-minute set off, and it wasn't great. So I just learned the lesson from that. I was like, oh, you just acknowledge what is, you deal with it, and I'm never worried about someone in the crowd heckling, because I'm going to say the first thing that comes to mind, and then just determine if that's too mean and I need to scale it back. But the first thing's always the funniest, so I just have no fear if someone decided to heckle. I'd be like, great, let's go for it. I'm on the stage. I'm comfortable on stage. Like, on stage feels like home to me. And I know the crowd's not there for the heckler, they're there for me. The funniest 6 minutes of comedy I ever did, I'm walking on stage and someone from the very back yells, "You look like Jesus," and I just went off, and it was so good and it went so well. And it was like, I ended up doing jokes I've never done since. I did know a bunch of jokes of "I look like Jesus," so I had something that he didn't know was already, in the back of my mind, but it gave me some freedom. And man, I re-listened to that set a few months ago, and it was like it's hard to even hear me talking because of how loud the crowd is. And it also helps when you're in a boxy comedy club. Boxy comedy clubs are so good for laughter. Like I love the Comedy Store down in La Jolla. I love Wise Guys up in Ogden, Utah. Like there's just a few boxy clubs that I've done over and over again and headlined multiple times and had so much fun doing it.
Mm. And so you've taken the finance thing, which is, it's like, looks like for me, you've got the finance, like where does the comedy thing make sense? Where has the finance passion or the expertise for that and writing books and all that come from?
You know, I love to write, and that's not what I expected. I wrote my first book because I wanted to be cool. I wanted to, like, yeah, I heard people say stuff like, "Oh, I wish I'd have known this earlier," and so that it motivated me to write the book that way. But I was like, "Oh, if I could write a book, that would be amazing, and it would help my business." And because I didn't really have a big vision for it other than to be cool and help my business, it took 2 years, and I didn't get anywhere with it. And then I had my business partner that was going to write it with me died. And so when he died, like it changed my thinking around the book. It changed it from being like something more about me to something about, you know, me, him, and the reader. And it really changed things, but I was still kind of scared to write. So I had a ghostwriter that became a co-author that helped out so much. But I mean, I just rewrote that book that I first wrote, and it's going to come out in a couple months as 2.0. And now it's 65,000 words instead of 99,000, which is hard to cut and trim. So it's more about the reader, right? And I just rewrote What Would the Rockefellers Do, my most popular book of all time. And I just finished writing Money Unmasked, which took me years and years, that came out last year, and I have no co-author on that. I write a blog at least every other week. I love the process of writing. It's like, it's exciting. I enjoy it. It allows me to be more articulate. It allows me to learn while I'm writing. It's directing my research, so it's more memorable of what I'm learning versus just reading passively. So I've just found a passion for the writing aspect, whether it's writing jokes or whether it's writing something in finance. I like all forms of writing. I mean, in some ways, jokes are more fun at times, and other times it's more fun to write for the ability to create a lesson for someone. And my next book that will come out will be using humor to teach finance. It's already in manuscript. I've already got a good amazing editor on it. I just have a lot of other stuff on the plate right now before it comes out. But yeah, I just found that was something that's in my DNA that I didn't know was there because I was afraid and being scared to put myself out there. Am I a good writer? When I look back to my first speech that I recorded, it was terrible. And now you watch me on that stage, I think I've got some good chops when I'm up there. Feel very confident in what I'm doing, and it just comes with reps and also, you know, a context and a vision that's something that I can dedicate myself to for decades because it's challenging and compelling and different and creative, and that's how I feel about writing and performing.
Mm. If you were to, with the finance aspect of it, I was trying to think of this myself, and I don't know if you have had anyone give you like, for the household names. I'm thinking of like, you have, Dave Ramsey and Ray Dalio and some other. I don't know if there's any other big finance people out there, but are there like do you view yourself as like a mashup between this type of finance guy and then, like the Jerry Seinfelds and Nate Bargatze, and like do you have like a perspective of like, yeah, I really like these guys and the finance stuff that I resonate with is over here? Or do you feel like you're not in any of those boxes?
I mean, I would definitely resonate a lot more with Ray Dalio than Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey would be like good fodder for me to make fun of. Like Dave Ramsey is the guide for the train wreck. Like you spending too much, follow Dave. But Dave makes a lot of money being a business owner, but doesn't teach people to be business owners to the masses. He's a lowest common denominator. Cut back, don't spend, reduce, eliminate, scrimp, save, sacrifice, defer, delay, get pissed, live off rice and beans. Like I just don't resonate with that at all. Like it's so not who I am. And I think there's a place for him, and obviously there's a lot of people that get benefit from that, but eventually they hit a ceiling that becomes problematic. Ray Dalio is one of the most brilliant money managers in the world. I think principally we're much more aligned, but I don't know how to manage money like Ray. I'm like a philosophizer. I'm like a philosophizer. I'm a philosopher of wealth and frameworks and what money is and the ideas behind it and the things that help people feel more empowered and remove their misinformation and address their myths and understand who they are and build that peace of mind and confidence. And so from a comedian standpoint, like there's certain comedians that I love and I could watch all day. And most comedians that I don't watch a lot of, it's because I just kind of know their formula and it's very, smooth and it's useful and it works for them. But I like the comedians that even if I know their formula, they're still hard to predict and they get me, or I don't know their formula at all and it's just so amazing to watch, but I don't know that I'm pretty, like when I'm up on stage as a comedian, I'm really laid back. I just am up there comfortable, leaning against the mic stand, telling stories, laughing. It's pretty much how I would be in everyday life for the most part, So it's more relaxed than when I'm presenting. I get intense at times when I present, and when I'm teaching finance, I get worked up and excited and like want people to like get it and get this huge amount of passion. So it's a very different gear. So I don't know who I would compare myself to in the financial world or the comedian world. I know who I'm not. I know I'm not like, I'm not like Jim Gaffigan's a really famous comedian that is a formulaic, I'm going to give you a fat joke every minute. It's like, it's just not my style. I like Dave Chappelle where I don't know where he's going. And like, he might just take a detour and tell a story for a while, or Neil Brennan, who's just, really like has unique different comedy specials that he does. Like those are kind of guys that really fascinate me that I could watch, or Sebastian Maniscalco, who's just so animated and all over the place. And even if I read his jokes, I might not laugh, but the way he delivers them, I think they're hilarious. So there's just so many great comedians out there that I watch, like a Daniel Tosh, who could do Tosh Show during COVID with no audience and not skip a beat, and then have his style when he's doing a podcast or doing comedy, and I laugh hysterically at it. So there's probably 20 comedians that if they were ever around in town, I'm going to do everything I can to be there. And then there's just a lot of really good ones that I probably don't know, but there's always something that I can learn. It's just that now that I've done a lot more comedy, I find some comedy a lot less appealing than I did before because I can see through the matrix.
Ah, interesting. And I want to go back to the writing thing. I don't know who said this, but I write to know what I think.
Oh, it helps.
Do you resonate with that?
For sure. I mean, I can go so much deeper when I'm writing and be like, well, what's the next layer? And what does that inform? And where's that coming from? And it's like, it's so helpful. I mean, my blogs are pretty long. They're like 2,500 words most times, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit less, but I'll just take a topic and I'm going into like asking the reader questions. So it personalizes it, but I'm also asking myself those questions. And I'm talking about experiences and mistakes and metaphors. It's so helpful. If I write a blog and I do a podcast that day, I can recall everything I wrote that day and usually go deeper than I've gone on that topic.
And what do you like? You come across when I met you in person and on seeing you on stage, and even now you're saying like I don't know if this is the right word. I haven't like no fear. What are you afraid of, or is there anything in your life that you're like hesitating, or what are the things that make you think twice, or do you have areas where you're still feeling like you hold back?
So I have some cysts on my kidneys, and in December my blood work was really not great. So I definitely had some nights where I would like be thinking like, man, I hope I can get this back on track, and that I didn't do too permanent of damage. And I had some fear around that. I just got my blood work done because that was December 23rd, and then I just got it done like a month ago. It was like 50% improved, and I'm already feeling massively better because I just have a great network of people. I'm willing to do the work. I had a lot of stress last year. I divorced a business that I had sold and was doing a licensing deal with. That was a business I founded, and I unwound a partnership with a really close friend, and it had me be a little bit like more cautious and concerned about mistakes and the cost of those mistakes, and speaking up in the appropriate time, and understanding the ramifications of losing relationships and feeling that sting. And that's where some of that chronic stress came from. But when I'm excited about the future, like I am right now, when I'm excited about the projects I'm doing, I don't really have a lot of fear. Like I'm willing to like double down, invest heavier in myself, and I think that only during those times where there's uncertainty or unwinding or difficulty that takes time to process, I'm not thinking about growing myself every day. But I'm always thinking like now, Is there therapy I could do that helps me out? Are there relationships I could meet that can help me learn or grow? Or are there courses I could take? Like, I'm just willing to really double down investing in myself. But there was 3-4 months there where I was just trying to heal from the wounds of some, how I handled those things and the mistakes I had made and not seen, and the ramifications of that were multiple seven figures, and something that I had brought into the world on my own and then brought people into, and now all of a sudden I'm not part of. So there are at least 3 or 4 times in my life where my confidence was what it took a while to build. 2008 and being over leveraged in real estate, going through mediation in 2014 to after a business acquisition and finding out that one of the people that came with it wasn't really engaged or doing work and wasn't going to be able to come along with it in a way that I wanted. And that was a tough time, but I got through that one really quick. Or then, divorcing my company. I mean, selling a company in 2021 and then saying, you can't tell anyone I'm involved in any way, shape, or form because I don't like what's going on or where you're going. So that was, there's those few times like that. But when you look at that versus being 25 years in the financial business, pretty small amount of time where I would, not just be excited, optimistic, charging forward, feeling great. But I'll tell you what, those 3 months felt like an eternity. I was like, I can't believe, like, I was tending towards pessimism at moments. I was frustrated and angry and not sleeping and bitter and upset with myself and judging myself and in comparison, things that I hadn't really experienced to that degree in my life. So it was helpful, and on the other side of it, I realized why I needed to do it, and it created so much space and possibility. But damn, it was hard. It just was hard.
So there's a lot of stuff there. What would you say is when you say you're excited about the future? And I guess I'll give some context. This is something that's been on my mind lately. My grandpa's 96, and I've been interviewing him weekly for like the last 6 months, and talking to someone that's almost a century old and they're like what they did back then. And also I found it interesting that someone that's so close to death, like, but doesn't know when. He's healthy. He's still like, but clearly like he's not living another 20 years for sure, and probably like statistically, like something crazy could happen and your body just, something could go wrong. Right. And he has had like the most simple life ever. He's lived alone since his wife died 30 years ago, and he's not in a nursing home yet. And he just lives out in this small, like, outskirts of town. But I guess what I'm curious about is his generation of people. I asked him, like, what dreams did you have? Or like, what did you and grandma talk about wanting to accomplish? And it was like, I was asking him, I don't know, some ridiculously hard scientific question. He'd be like, why would I even consider that? It wasn't even like there was no aspiration. There was no nothing. He only got internet 6 months ago when I put Starlink into his house so I could record the conversations. And it's like, it's just a different world. And I feel like in our world, everything is goal oriented, like make a vision, achieve this, accomplish this, get this thing. And I'm looking at people that are very in that world versus someone like my grandpa who is just like oblivious. It's almost like, I don't know. I'm curious with all the stuff and the research and stuff you've done when it comes to money and like living life well. How do you contrast that with someone that is in his situation? Does that make sense? And now a quick word from our sponsor, which is Boolean Review. Boolean is a review software that my wife and I own, and we sell this software to home service businesses. So I know there are many different people that listen to this podcast, but if you know someone, an electrician, an HVAC business, a painting company, maybe a coffee stand, someone that is providing service to customers and get found online by customers, we would love to talk to them. This is a review software that is the highest converting review software in the home service space in particular. And if you're wondering what that means, if you have 100 clients in your business, the typical business gets between 1% to 2% of those customers. So for every 100, they would get one person or two people to leave them a review on Google. Other review softwares get between 3 and 5%, and the Boolean review software gets 20% of your customers to leave you Google reviews. And these are fantastic Google reviews with lots of words, keywords that are going to help with SEO, pictures, stories, the names of your employees. So if you want to learn more, check out booleanreview.com. And now back to the episode.
Well, what's nice is wealth is perspective, and we get to define what wealth is. And in some ways, maybe the way that he views it is just, just fine for who he is. And maybe in some ways, people that think they've got to have everything that there is never find contentment and peace. So it's, I can't really judge it just based upon outside perspective of where someone lives, the things that they do, because I just think we all have such different preferences. I know I've had to really go through discovery of what really fulfills me and what doesn't fulfill me, and what society would tell me is fulfilling isn't all that fulfilling to me. I like to write. I write a blog. I don't even know how many people read it. I don't write it because I think it's going to be the biggest thing that I do. I don't have the metrics there that I have on my YouTube channel, but I like it more. And so I'm just choosing to do it for myself. Now I got into a financial position where I can do that and make that choice. But I think sometimes we're pulled so much for recognition and awards and societal status, and people respect people that have done extraordinary things, but sometimes those extraordinary things come with extraordinary cost. It's look at the people's lives that are some of the greatest athletes in the world, and you'll find a lot of broken hearts all around them because they're not around and because they're not very available, and they don't really know how to operate in everyday society. And when the lights go out at the, wherever they play, all of a sudden they don't know what to do next, and it can become a very disenchanting place to be. So I think we always have to continually reinvent what our future looks like, be excited about it, but most importantly, design a game that we want to play along the way. And what does play look like to you? What does play look like to me might be very different, but society wants us to think it's all about private jets and Bentleys and mansions and fake boobs and all that kind of stuff, right? There's an appearance that's put out there, but the reality is it's those special moments we have with the people that we care about the most, and being adored by the people that we adore, not just by fans that we've never met. Yet it's so damn tempting. It's so alluring. And so, yeah, someone can have an extraordinary vision, but also big vision requires big responsibility that could be really difficult along the way. And that's where you see a lot of entrepreneurs without their spouse anymore, or not getting a lot of time with their kids, or feeling a ton of regret. So I couldn't be the kind of guy that sat out in the woods all the time, but I do have a cabin that I like to go and write. But then I like to come back to society, and I like to go out and do things. I like to go to comedy and concerts, and I like to travel, and I like to see the world. I like the big cities. We were just in New York. I love to see something like that was created. We're going to London. I like that, but that's me. So wealth is merely a byproduct of a life well lived. Who defines a life well lived? That's the eye of the beholder. It's the people that are in the most pain that are trying to live up to someone else's standard of wealth, not their own, because then they're always in pretense and they're always trying to perform instead of enjoy and be present. And it's a tough game. It's something I'm working on all the time.
You just said something that I remember in your book, and I remember seeing it on the side of the basically wealth or money follows value, right?
Yeah.
How do you determine, or what's your advice to someone that's trying to create? Because that would be don't chase money or chase the game that is valuable to you and then trust that the money will come. Or am I saying that similar or close to how you would say that?
I mean, sometimes it might take a little bit more time, because value requires systems often. It requires reach, or it requires impact. And sometimes we are developing the skills to build that value, but we don't have the network to build the value yet, or we're not known enough yet. So it does take some time and some patience. But if we become value creators and we're just abundant and we're consistently looking at how we can add value and serve people and solve problems, what you're going to find is value is going to follow. Value is going to find you. People are going to want to be around you. It's the people that are most miserable and in victimhood and blaming that don't really find that they're a value creator. They become value extractors, or they become consumers of value. And that becomes very exhausting. And then they wonder why they're not luckier. They wonder why someone else is doing better than them. It's because they're living by a scarcity paradigm. And those rules don't lend towards exchange. And it's exchange that creates wealth for us. So what's going to allow you to exchange with others? like I think that even the notion of retirement gets people to stop thinking about value creation because they're planning for bankrupting their value creation world. They're like, okay, I'm going to stop creating value one day. Why? Now, maybe they're like, no, value creation for them is their family then, but why not have that along the way and still stay a bit engaged? Why not stop burning yourself out so that you feel like you have to retire? Like retirement came from an industrial age where people worked tirelessly with physical demands that destroyed their body. And those people that are still in that world, then I guess retirement's still a viable option. But what about people that are using their minds like you and I? Like, why would I retire? The older I get, the more wise I typically become, and the more reach I might even have, and the more systems that I've learned, and the more relationships I've impacted. And so, why would I stop that and unwind it? Because for me, at that point, it would be kind of sad, kind of frustrating. Not, like it's
especially if you're enjoying and you've got a balanced approach to it, right?
right.
Like you're mixing in your vacations and your leisure with the work, not like grind for 30, 40 years and then just like exhaust, just pass out.
Right.
You also have a book for kids. If I am not, I did some research. Tell me about that, because we have a 6, 4, 2, and 6-month-old.
Oh, good answer for this book.
And it sounds like this book is great for my 6-year-old and soon to be 4.
6-year-old, maybe even the 4-year-old. Yeah, those two. I am money. I don't go on trees, and it's money is the character. So that's the character, and it's like great conversations, great questions. It's about building their gifts and treating themselves as their greatest asset, and earning and spending and saving and giving, and the really basics and fundamentals. Even teaching them what credit cards are, and if and it's like their credit card codes, and sometimes if money doesn't pay attention to them, it spends money you don't have and makes them feel bad, makes them feel good temporarily, but like so it's pretty fun. It's a little guinea pig in it. It's kind of the companion to money and these other little characters. And Julia Cook, my co-author, just knows how to speak kid, and she's super brilliant. So it's quite phenomenal.
And what's the title of that?
I Am Money and I Don't Grow on Trees.
And when's that coming out?
It's out. You can grab it right now.
Oh, it's out now?
Yep. Yeah, the paperback is just coming out because Barnes & Noble wanted to get it in all the schools. But yeah, it's been out at hardcover since January 2nd.
That's awesome. Yeah, what else is we got maybe 10 minutes or so. What else is on your mind these days, or what are you most passionate about or telling people about?
I'm building this community called the producer community, which is helping people to grow their income, keep the money they make, grow their money, and then grow themselves. And so it's a weekly education series that I do, and then a community that's behind it. So I'm building that. I'm writing the content on a daily basis. I'm building out the producer's manual that's phenomenal with little like implementation guides that will be there every week so that people could really get their financial house in order. We've been working for 25 years building a financial network so that we have a network of people from accountants and attorneys and investment advisors that could come in and support the implementation of what we do. I'm really fired up about it, man. I haven't been this excited. And that whole grow yourself, we're going to integrate elements of health because, there's a concept really of genetic wealth, which is the habits that we pass on to our future generation of the food and understanding epigenetics that, yes, we have the genes that we were given, but we can also express those genes based upon our behaviors and ideas. And we're just dealing with a lot of stuff like chronic stress and the toxins in the environment and overly processed food. And so it requires a new level of intention and attention to get people to be healthy so that, look at how many women are having a hard time getting pregnant because there's issues with progesterone. There's chemicals that they're in their body now, from too much exposure to whatever's in the air. And ultimately, I think that families that are healthy don't decimate the family wealth. They get to spend time outside of the hospital. They get to talk about, they get to feel better about themselves and have more energy along the way. So this is the first time I'm really integrating that kind of stuff in a program that I'm working on. And, for 25 years, half of our clients were in the health space, functional medicine, every type of kind of health professional from nutritionists and, some of the big thought leaders. So I could aggregate some of that and kind of help people navigate that world. And our goal is to make it really affordable for just about anyone to understand where they're at from a health standpoint. Because if you're uber wealthy, I know financial firms that they do health workups that are $40,000 workups on their clients, and they send tests to Germany and they send tests to wherever it is that's the very, very best in the world so they can take care of their client in a way that they can continue to produce at this really high level. Well, the good news is when something starts at the wealthy, a lot of times it'll trickle down. And I kind of did that with this family office concept when I first started in finance in '98. I went and saw a year or two later a family office where it was one group of individuals under one roof analyzing a transaction for a client, attorneys, accountants, and everything. I was like, I need to bring this to more of the masses, to the entrepreneur that's not worth tens of millions of dollars, because that one was a firm that was had a low barrier to entry at 30 million, which is a pretty high barrier for most people. So I did a pretty good job at doing that. So now I'm taking that same concept in finance and also bringing the health aspect so that we can hopefully get more and more people in a place where they're healthy both financially and physically.
So your previous business was like a fractional family office, essentially.
Fractional family office, virtual family office.
Okay, and now you're basically family office with the health and wellness integrated as well.
And way more affordable, because I'm going to do a lot of it in a way that we're going to utilize AI and technology, and we're going to, I'll be teaching every week, and just thinking about making it bite-sized and implementable. And I have an amazing partner in it. So it's been years in the making, and it's actually going to come out in July. So it's right around the corner here.
That's awesome. Well, let's move to some wrap-up questions for you. What are well, first of all, just to make sure that we can link all these, you had your Killing Sacred Cows, Money Unmasked, I'm Not Money, I Don't Grow on Trees, and
I'm money on trees.
And then what are the other books that you've written or are coming up?
Well, I'm going to put out a book bundle for $47, so people should check out my website. It should be up pretty soon, GarrettGunderson.com. Go to books, and the books that people are going to look for in there: Killing Secret Cows 2.0, What Would the Rockefellers Do, Money Unmasked, and then 2 digital courses that come with that for $47. So that's all hardcover books in their hands. I just want to help them, get their financial house in order, get it on track, and have the insights and information. And so yeah, whether they want to listen or whether they want to read, I kind of give them a little bit of both. And those courses would normally be like anywhere from $200 to $500 normally, but I'm bonusing those in the books. Killing Sacred Cows has a Rich Life Investor course. What Would the Rockefellers Do has a Legacy Builder course. And I mean, you've got a nice workbook and a few videos to follow along. So I'm pretty excited about that as well.
Speaking of the Rockefellers, we just went to St. Augustine, Florida. Have you ever been there?
Yep. Love St. Augustine. I have a few really good friends that live there, 2 good friends.
Yeah. The Henry Flagler, who is Rockefeller's business partner, was like, everything was Flagler, everything. And he was all over that town. But it was fascinating to understand. I did some research on John Rockefeller and his partnership with Flagler, and how basically St. Augustine was like this summer home winter escape for the wealthy, like New York and the northern livers that wanted to get away from the cold weather. But it's hilarious that back then, before air conditioning, basically, as they said, as soon as it was like April or May, like you did not want to be in St. Augustine because it was way too humid and hot, and everyone just left. So it'd just be like nobody there in the summer, and then everyone would come in the winter. So we got your books. Can you give us 3 other book recommendations that have been either your favorite books, ones you read most recently, highly recommended, you give the most often?
So I love anything by Stephen Pressfield, especially The War of Art. I love that book. I've read it more than once, especially for anyone that's ever creating content. That's really, really helpful. Anything really by David Hawkins. I think I started with Power versus Force, but The Eye of the Eye or Letting Go. I love his audio, In the World But Not of It, probably my favorite. So those are 2. Let's see, a third one. I don't know how it would be now, but one of the books that really changed my life early on was Rich Dad Poor Dad. That book just really impacted me when I was really starting in this financial world and really focusing on cash flow. So I'm really grateful for that book. I don't know what it would read like now, but I liked it then. I've probably watched John Wick more than any other movie, but Inglourious Bastards is pretty damn amazing. In the old days, I might have said Shawshank Redemption. There's just so many good movies out there. But I just think Inglourious Bastards has multiple language, but I don't feel like I'm watching a foreign film, and introduced us to Christoph Waltz, who was just phenomenal in that. And there's just some super intense scenes. And Tarantino's just a pretty genius. I like rewriting How Hitler Dies. I think that's pretty amazing.
And this is the you're talking about the 2009 one with Brad Pitt.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome.
Brad Pitt's awesome in it too.
And if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's your preferred method of contact? Your website?
I go to GarrettGunderson.com. Garrett at GarrettGunderson.com. My team looks at that. But go to my blog, subscribe to that, grab the quiz, and find out what your money persona is and those hidden factors that determine your success or failure when it comes to those things. So I think that's the best way to get info.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and being generous. Yeah, this was awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show. And also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me.